We have seen in previous episodes that we have to be a little bit more explicit when programming in Java. And in this episode, where we cover methods, we will see more of that. But I think it's important to point out that all the concepts that we have learned about functions in Python, we can now apply to methods in Java. Methods have names, we can have them take parameters or return values, and to use them, we have to call them. I have already written some code that we will take a look at in a second. But first, let us have a look at the general syntax of a method in Java. All methods have a method body with instructions belonging to that method. But let us have a look at the other parts of a method in Java. In object-oriented programming, we try to restrict who has access to what, and as you learn more about objects and classes, this will start to make more and more sense. For now, let us just be as restrictive as we can and always use private for our access modifier. Next is the return type. In Java, we have to specify what data type the return of a method has. Is it an integer? Is it a string? Or is it something completely different? If we don't want to return any value from our method, we specify that using the keyword void. The name is something we decide. It should be something that describes what the method does, and it shall use the camel case notation, just as variables do in Java. And just as in Python, we can have parameters when we have a method. But just remember to specify the data type of each parameter. We are now in the project that I have prepared for today, and we're going to start by looking at 3 methods. So let me just scroll down a little bit here. And the first method that we're going to take a look at is a method that does not take any parameters and that does not return anything. So we can see here that we have set the access modifier to private. We said that for now we just use private, so we have set it to private. We have said that this method will not return anything, so we use the keyword void to indicate to Java that it will not return anything. Then we have a name, and we can see that we don't have any parameters either. Then in the code block that belongs to the method, we print a message. And if we take a look at the second method that we have here, we have a method that does not return anything, but that takes a parameter. So we can see that the access modifier is private. We say that we don't return anything because we use the keyword void as our return type. We have another name for this method, and then we have one parameter. And note that we have to specify what data type that this parameter has. And then when we have specified our parameter, we can use it in the method body. The last one here, the name is add. We can see that it returns something. It will return something. It will return an int. And it also takes 2 parameters. For both of them, we must specify the data type. So we can see here, all right, we have the access modifier, private. It will return a value. It will return an int. The name of the method is add. It takes 2 parameters. Both of them are integers. And if we specify that we will return something from this method, we must do so using the return keyword. So we see here in this case we calculate first value plus second value, and that is what we're returning. All right, so that is looking at return types and parameters, both having them and not But let's go up here and look at the main method, the starting point of our Java programs. Now that we have learned about methods, we can better make sense of it. We see that it's public, and that the reason it is public is because Java needs to have access to this method so that it can start our program. The return type is void, meaning that this method will not return anything. The name of the method is main, and we can see that it takes one parameter, which is an array of strings. This static keyword that we have here, it will actually cause us some problems right now. Because if we want to use one of our methods, let's say that we want to use print hello. So I try to call it. It will tell us that I cannot do so because this method here, our main method, is a static method and the one that we wrote isn't. Exactly what static means is easier to explain when you have learned a little bit more about classes and objects. So for now, what we will do is I will explain how you get around this. So one solution would be to add static here. But that is not a good solution because that is not what static is for. So I don't want to abuse that. Instead, I'm going to do something different and I'll write the code and then I'll explain it. So what I did was that I created a new variable called myApp. And the data type is the same as the class that we're in. So the data type is the same as the class, we see they match, and I named it myApp. And what we are doing here is that we are creating an object of this class. When we have done that, we can use that object to call our methods. So if we now try to run this, we will see that it prints hello everyone. And we can try to call one of our other methods, maybe the one that prints a message, and I'll send along the argument hello. Yeah, so it's something different, and then we can try to run it again. And we can see, all right, this is how we send along arguments. Very similar to how we do it in Python. And for the last one that returns a value, we must make sure that we take care of the value that we return. And I know it's an integer that we return, so we can do something like this. And let's add 5 and 3 as our arguments. So we send in 2 arguments, 5 and 3. And if we take a look at our method, we see that it will return an integer. So we must make sure to store that in a variable. And if we have stored it in a variable, we can now print that variable if we would like. And maybe we print sum. And if I run it, we can see that we have now called all 3 methods that we have created here.